Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1372. You might think that my being in California means that I'm customarily late. Well, perhaps Yin Yang is customarily late, but people in California are generally prompt. So, what am I to do? I am to put out a request for an assistant to meet with me every morning because it is 5:10 a.m. my time when I try to start the show. And actually, I try to start the show at 5 a.m., but of course, it takes me more than. Anyway, the law of balance in Victoria Rader's book, Prosper Me, the 35 Universal Laws to Make Money Work for You from the international best-selling Me series, small m, capital E, E for energy. And this is chapter 21. Live on what you earn. That's the law of balance. I sure hope you don't hear my refrigerator going. In terms of money, achieving balance is very easy. It simply involves living on what you earn and not going into debt on credit to get what you think you want. Spending on what you can't afford takes you out of balance. Such as the webcam I bought doesn't work unless it's on a computer. So I've got to return it. I would have liked to have kept it, but it will mean that I can upgrade a different camera that I can buy that I really want. So I don't have an extra webcam. I have a graded webcam. So I have to return this one that I bought. Not the one I'm using. I'm using a phone right now. Once you start tracking your spending, you can look over the last 3 months to identify your spending patterns. Remember, we did that? You might notice that some things are out of balance, but you won't be able to see this if you haven't been tracking. For example, when I start working with clients and they say they need help with their physical health, I ask them how much water they drink. Almost everyone thinks they drink more water than they actually do. Same with diet. Almost everyone thinks they eat healthier than they actually do. You want to be aware of your spending behavior so you can stay in balance. It is important you know where your funds are going, not assume. When Vika was working on the material for this book, she says, I realized that despite COVID-19 regulations, the deadline for my extended corporate taxes would come a month earlier than I thought. I had to go through my profit and loss statements, balancing my business books and the books for my rental properties. Normally, I don't mind doing this because it requires me to use the left side of my brain, the analytical side. It might be very tedious, it might be a very tedious, repetitive job, but I focus on how accomplished I'll feel once I'm done. However, having to compress this activity into a short period of time threw my life out of balance. Taking a step back, I could see there was an imbalance in my life because I was having to pour time into the time-consuming tax preparation, the time I hadn't budgeted for. This threw other things out of balance. I had to be very clear with myself on the things I couldn't sacrifice because they were what kept me spiritually and physically balanced, and identify the things which I could cut out. Pausing long enough to acknowledge the building stress and frustration enabled me to seek to restore balance to my life. When your energy is out of balance, it tends to have an effect on your money, which goes out of balance also. If you don't know how to spiritually balance your inner energy, that usually manifests as food struggles, relationship struggles, or money struggles, because they are all energetic activities. By centering and balancing yourself, by default, you make balancing your money easier. I've noticed that many people have a tendency to do what I call balancing by extremes. We overcorrect to compensate for the imbalances in our life. We need to find a way to achieve that balance in moderation. For me, when I am too social, out and about all the time, I end up feeling drained. So I go into complete temporary isolation to recover. For some, staying in that alone time could be draining because they feel lonely. Introverts charge up by being alone, while extroverts charge up by being around other people. Knowing where you are on that spectrum and learning to balance your energy is very important. The energy balance for money is very similar. It is shown as either overspending and feeling drained or oversaving and feeling isolated. Remember when I told you about my grandpa Volodya? He lived in the Soviet Union where you couldn't do any business because everything was owned by the government. The governments had all the salaries, making it very difficult for people to make more money. However, my grandpa was gifted with the entrepreneurial gene, so he managed to have a few side ventures. He was making money from them, but he didn't trust banks. So he kept the money he made in his house. He saved and saved without spending any of it. When Ukraine left the Soviet Union, the wave of hyperinflation devalued the currency, and all his money lost its value because it wasn't protected or invested, and it certainly wasn't enjoyed. That's one extreme example of imbalance. At the other end of the spectrum, there are those who have no income yet spend, spend, spend all the time. And when they've spent all their money, they start charging their spending to their credit card. Sooner or later, that spending is going to catch up with them and they'll be in serious debt. Neither way of living is an appropriate implementation of the law of balance because you're swinging from one painful extreme to the other. There is a process in the Tao known as the middle way, which involves following the balanced extreme free way through life. You don't step too far in either direction in order to maintain balance. This is Yin Yang saying something about the middle way. Some Buddhism is that way, and I'm not familiar with Buddhism. I'm not familiar too much with the Tao, but in Chinese we say Dao Li, which is the Tao reasoning, and Dao Li means reason in the language. So that's part of the culture in China. The Tao is spelled T-A-O, so whenever you see T-A-O, it's pronounced Tao. Okay, you got it. A while back, Vika says, I started getting the urge to start practicing Tai Chi. For a while, I found excuses for why I didn't have the time for Tai Chi. But eventually, I downloaded an app that equipped me with a 7-minute practice. I figured I could find 7 minutes every day for Tai Chi. This practice of physically moving with energy helped me with my recorded live programs because my work focuses on working with mental and emotional energy flow for life transformation. I could discern God telling me, you have to be energetically balanced so you can deliver the energy through which people will receive insight. It was very clear that while I might not be the source of the insight, which comes from Creator, it was important that I be fully aligned in order to effectively facilitate change for those who were joining me for the live programs I was conducting. This is all Vicar Rader speaking. That little effort of 7 minutes a day doing Tai Chi aligned my energy centers, which made it easier for me to deliver the message the viewers came to receive. When you first balance your energy and then balance your money, prosperity becomes not only possible, it becomes highly probable for you. Interestingly, 8% of the American population are millionaires via their assets. These are people, not businesses. People who aren't big corporate bosses, attorneys, or high flyers, but blue collar workers who earn money, live off some of it, and save some of it. If wealth and prosperity are your goals, start with seeking and maintaining balance. Action steps. No matter how out of balance your life or your finances might feel right now, balancing can be purposeful, possible, and prosperous. Right. Vika Rader is a wonderful person. She has more balance than me. I will say. Anyway, action steps. Number 1 of 3. I would invite you to revisit action step number 1 for the law of progress. If you have not yet made a visual representation of your financial map of where you are today, please do so. Once you do so, it will be easy to see where things might be out of balance, and you can set small steps toward their balancing. Number 2, if you don't already know, this is a great time to learn to balance your bank statements, your checking account, or your business profit and loss statements. Every month, tally up your income and subtract your expenses to see whether you are in a positive or negative cash flow. I, Ying Yang is making a comment here about her father's family business. In her father's family business, this is Ying Yang speaking at the moment, um, the profit and loss break-even point took the computer scientist over a year to perform, and he was using COBOL to create our um, uh, computer program for the system. This in those days it was called the Nixdorf computer. A Nixdorf computer was like this big and about this high off the floor. Anyway, number 3. Balance your brain's left and right hemispheres to activate better overall balance in your life, Vika says. Have some fun doing things you usually would do with your dominant hand with your less dominant one. Right. Play tennis, brush your teeth, or button your shirt with your less dominant hand. Hoo, 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 hoo. That'll be hard. That'll be hard. Have some fun doing things you usually would do with your dominant hand with your less dominant one. Right? Play tennis, brush your teeth, or button your shirt with your less dominant hand. Have fun coming up with unique ideas for creating brain balance. A balanced brain will be more capable of coming up with optimal, balanced financial solutions and opportunities for your life. Activation. Read the activation below out loud and then close your eyes to feel a gentle shift. To wire this activation deeper into your subconscious mind, read it again while standing on one leg. Now, do it on the other side. Feel the difference. Enjoy balancing. Okay. Okay. I'm going to move this chair. I'm going to try this way. Okay. Just so I can get here and stand on one leg. All right, how can I stand on one leg? I'm standing on my right leg. I now understand, practice, and live the law of balance. I spend wisely and well within my income. I am generous with my charitable contributions and consistent with my savings. I am excited about my investments. Money is easy. I got this. I am me. Close your eyes. Feel the gentle shift. Okay, now I'm going to shift over to my left leg and I'm going to read it again. I now understand, practice, and live the law of balance. I spend wisely and well within my income. I am generous with my charitable contributions and consistent with my savings. I am excited about my investments. Money is easy. I got this. I am me. Oh, that felt different. Wow. Yes, that was wonderful. It did feel different. It felt like it was easy to read on my normally standing leg. My standing leg that I usually use if I stand on one leg. It was easy to read and it was easy to flow. And then when good morning, John Clark, how are you? Oh. Now, then when I stood on my left leg and read it again for the law of balance, um, I was conscious of my foot not being in balance, partly because I sprained my foot the other day. But I stood on it and stood on it and stood on it and stood on it. And it does. It did sound different on my left leg. Oh, interesting. That's good to know. Thanks, John. And yes, it was more of a concentration that I had to make before I could actually even understand what I was reading. So it makes your brain work on it in a different way. Really, really, really. I just showed you, and John Clark says, and we have, and there was something I was about to say. Oh, yes, about right-handedness and left-handedness. I have a family friend whose daughter was born left-handed, but the family prevented her from using her left hand and forced her to use her right hand to train it to become her dominant hand. And I gave her a gift of Jackson ball one day, many, many years ago when she was still a child. And she was playing with it, but her left hand kept trying to grab the ball while she was playing. Her left hand impulsively, it probably instinctively tried to grab the ball because it was her left hand that was her dominant hand. So what I said to her in front of her parents, one of her parents, was try learning how to play with it with your left hand too, and then you'll become doubly skilled and doubly gifted. I hope she did. Anyway, so I'll talk to you again later tomorrow. It's good to see you. Uh, John Clark, Marty Blue, John Jones, and uh, uh, Casey Urashita, and Nancy Saunders, and Mandy Olekshi, and all the people that come. Okay, I'll see you then. Bye bye. Old Kinderhook.